In this snip, we'll be creating a Jupyter Notebook on top of an EMR cluster in AWS. To get started, from the Amazon EMR service, click Create Cluster. Then select Go to Advanced option. We can click Next and go to the Hardware section. Now we need to set up our networking. To do that, we'll need a public and private subnet. So let's go ahead and click Create a VPC. This will open up a new tab where we can create our VPC. Click VPCs and create. We'll name ours Notebook VPC. And we'll use a 10.0.0.0/16 CIDR and click Create. Next, we'll click the link to our VPC. And we can create our two subnets. Click Subnets, Create Subnet. We'll name our first Notebook Public. And we'll select the VPC we just created. And we'll make sure our CIDR block goes inside of our VPC CIDR block. I'll use 10.0.1.0/24. Next, to make it public, we'll create an Internet Gateway. Select Internet Gateways and choose Create. We'll name this Notebook Gateway. And we'll attach it to our VPC. Click Actions and Attach to VPC and select the VPC we created. Great. So this gives our public subnet a way to get out to the internet, but we have to add a routing rule so it knows how to use it. Go back to Subnets, select our public subnet, and click the Route table. We'll select the Routes tab and move this up a bit. Then Edit Routes, Add Route. We'll use all zeros to specify all routable IP addresses, and then select our Internet Gateway and save. Jupyter Notebooks can only run on private networks, so let's set that up next. Go back to Subnet and create Subnet. We'll name this one Notebook Private Subnet and use our new VPC. And our CIDR will be 10.0.2.0/24. Select Create and close. We want our Jupyter Notebook to be able to reach out to Git in order to download and upload its Jupyter Notebooks. To do that, we'll need a NAT gateway. So let's create one now. Click NAT Gateways and create NAT Gateway. We'll select our public subnet and use an existing Elastic IP address or create a new one. And create NAT Gateway. We'll click Edit Route Tables and we'll select Create Route Table. This will be our private route table. And we'll put it in our new VPC. And then we'll edit the route table by selecting Routes, then Edit Routes, add a route, 0.0.0.0/0. Our target will be our new NAT gateway. Next, we'll need to attach this private route table to our private subnet. Click Actions, Edit Subnet Associations, select Private Subnet, and save. Now we have a private and public subnet set up, all ready to build our EMR cluster on. So let's go back to our previous tab. We'll refresh this page. A Jupyter Notebook requires EMR version 5.18 or greater, and Hadoop, Spark, and Livy. We can choose our software configuration here, so we'll just pick the things that we need. Go back to Hardware, and now we can see our Notebook VPC. Also, our private subnet should be selected as our EC2 subnet. Next, you can decide how big you want your EMR cluster to be. For demonstration purposes, I'll leave it at the defaults, but this is dependent on your workload. Click Next. We'll name our cluster Notebook Cluster. Click Next and Create. Great, now our cluster's starting up. Next thing we'll do is we'll add a Git repository that points to where we want to store our Jupyter Notebook. click Get Repositories and Add Repository. For this demo, we'll be using a repository provided by AWS Labs. We'll name our repository and use our Git URL. This will be provided in the show notes. For branch, we'll select master. Because this is a public Git repository, we can use a public repository without credentials. But if you're using a private repo, you can set your credentials here. Awesome. Now we have our cluster starting and our Git repository. Finally, we can create our notebook. Click Notebooks and Create Notebook. We'll name it and provide a description. We'll choose our cluster. We can use the default security group, but we'll need to edit it later. And we'll go ahead and create our notebook. While our notebook is starting, select Services and VPC. Then select Security Groups. At this point, we'll need to wait a few minutes for our cluster to be built and our notebook to be created inside of it. Once that's done, we can refresh this and see that we have a new security group with the word editor in it. And after just about 4 or 5 minutes, here it is, Elastic MapReduce Editors Editor. We'll edit the outbound rules and click Edit Rules. We'll add a rule and we'll leave it as custom TCP and add port range 443. This will allow all outbound HTTPS traffic, which is exactly what we need to connect to GitHub. Click Save Rules and close. Now let's go back to our EMR console. And we can see our test notebook status is ready. Let's go ahead and click on it. We'll scroll to the Git repository section and click Link New Repository. Here, we'll link our SageMaker demo, or if you have your own Git repository, you'd link that. And click Link Repository. After about 30 seconds, you can refresh and you'll see the link status is changed to link. Awesome. Now let's open our Jupyter Notebook. Scroll to the top and select Open in Jupyter. And we can see our SageMaker demo. Let's click on that folder. And you can pick any you choose, but I'm going to pick the Reinforcement Learning and then Deep Racer RoboMaker Coach Gazebo. And I'll open up the Deep Racer Notebook. Awesome. Now we have a fully functioning Jupyter Notebook and we're ready to run some code and really take advantage of the cluster we built. Thanks for watching.